Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob at Smirking Gun Reviews, and we are back again with another one of my final viewing episodes. This time we are doing 1995's Strange Days from 20th Century Fox. This movie came out in October of 1995, and I have not seen this movie in, I would have to say easily just over 20 years. It's like, oh my god, when I do the math. I used to own this movie on VHS when it came in when like 20th Century Fox had the big thick VHS cases that were like kind of gold trimmed, if anybody remembers those. And it sat there. I bought it. It sat there, and it sat there. And I remember always thinking, is today the day you're going to watch Strange Days again? And time just, here we are. This long further. Like, I just remember it always just sitting there, and I never picked it back up, and I'm not 100% sure why. But anyway, after seeing it, again, after all this time, I wasn't sure if I was going to put this on my essential film series, like the movies that you have to see, or the movies that I liked, and now I'm rewatching and I never need to see again. It was kind of a toss-up as I was watching it. But in the end, even though I still like this movie, in fact, I like it more now than I probably did then. But it's another one of those movies that, honestly, if I waited this long to see it, it would probably be a lot longer before I needed to see it again. That being said, Strange Days is this like techno noir movie from 1995. It stars Ray Fiennes, which this is like, I mean, I forgot like how good Ray Fiennes is as far as range, because I mean, this is 1995. This is like right after Schindler's List and stuff. And the fact that he always kind of plays, or not always, but like, you know, not over the top. Like, yeah, we got him as Voldemort, but like he did a lot of movies like, you know, like the Constant Gardener. I think he was in that. The one with Kristen Scott Thomas, the one that was like 3 hours long. God, why can't I remember that movie? But he does a lot of like, you know, kind of period pieces, kind of more serious movies. And in this, you get to see him as just like really slimy ex-cop, at least at first. Like he's like kind of like a used car salesman. Yeah, Angela Bassett's in here. She kicks ass in this movie. You got Tom Sizemore, Juliette Lewis. And as soon as I remembered that he was in this, I was like, oh God, man, I am mad at myself for not seeing this. It's the almost always great Michael Wincott and that voice. You've also got Vincent D'Onofrio. You got William Fincher. Goodness, there's even more, I think, than that are in this movie. But yeah, okay, so let's just start talking about this movie. So I'll have the trailer playing here. So anyway, this is like a techno noir movie that was made in 95. But it's like a 90s movie that should have been made in the 80s. It feels like an 80s movie in a lot of ways. And then sometimes it feels like a 90s rap video. And then sometimes it feels like it's a 90s movie trying to tell the future story, the not too future story, okay? Because this takes place in 1999, like right before 2000. So this movie's in 95, so it's not that big a leap. But in those 5 years, they basically think that, man, we're about to be in like a fucking war zone in our city, at least in LA. And, you know, since this was made, you know, like it's a product of the times. This movie is dated, but not like so much that you can't kind of just turn your brain off. One of the things that kind of turned me off, though, early was everything was just wet. Everybody acted like they were on cocaine. And maybe that's not a bad thing, but it just kind of was like, if this is the way it's going to be through the whole movie, because I hadn't seen it in 20 years, I was dreading it, because it's also 2 hours and 25 minutes long. If I had one major problem with this movie, it would be that it does not need to be 2.5 hours long. they spend the first hour of this movie kind of world building, soaking us in this like Los Angeles of the very, well, back then, the very near future. And so like, yeah, it's like 50 some odd minutes before we're really into the major plot. Like you get, it's kind of in the background going. So, and then there's like a whole chunk at the end that really could have been like shrunk down. So this movie could have been an hour 45, 2 hours tops. But other than that, this movie, like I said, it's like, it's a 90s movie trying to tell a future story that feels like an 80s movie trying to be a movie that's still that's set in the 90s, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, so Ray Fiennes is this guy who plays Lenny Nero, great name, who he used to be a vice cop, and now he trades in these discs that give you, if you wear this like net on your head and you have like a fucking mini DVD player on you, you can live somebody's memories, you can feel somebody's memories. People record their memories, it gets from their cortex and goes into this disc, and you can live through the eyes of other people's memories. And you can get like all sorts of, you know, crazy scenarios. And mostly what he deals in is like sex and violence and stuff, but not snuff. Which is like why, you know, somebody's memory of somebody getting killed. He doesn't like dealing with that. And he really is like not like a con man, but like a used car salesman. He's real slick and sweaty. Again, I couldn't get over that. For like everybody was just sweaty and talking like they're on coke. And what ends up happening is he gets caught up, and he has this ex that's used to be you know, he was in love with, and he's living through her old memories on the disc. And he ends up getting caught up in this murder situation. There's this girl that was working for him, or knew him, you know, and she recorded something that got her on the run. People are trying to kill her. These cops are after her. And when he finally, because it does take a good long while before he finally gets involved with the story, it's kind of ends up being like this very 90s, the LAPD corruption type of thing. That's still like they were basically saying how bad since 95 the LA corruption has gotten with the cops. And back in the 90s, guys, if you don't know already, if you were an LA cop, man, people fucking hated you. They had a bad reputation. If they still do, I don't pay attention to LA cop stuff very much, but that's my problem. And so you've got this noir story where it's like, you know, the girl that got away and is with the wrong man. You got the girl, Angela Bassett, that's trying to help our hero, and she's the one he should be with, but he doesn't see it because he's obsessed with his old life. You've got twists and turns with bad cops, bad criminals, people that maybe are criminals but aren't criminals, you know, just all the seedy stuff from like a noir movie all over this. And that's where this movie shines, if you can get past some of it. This was directed by Kathryn Bigelow and written by James Cameron, so I believe this must have been the time that they were a couple. And you can tell now, like now that I know that it's a Kathryn Bigelow movie, I can see the influences that she takes in all her movies that are in this, but you can also see Cameron's hands all over this. And maybe that's why it feels like an 80s movie, trying to be a future 90s movie, if you know what I'm saying. But it's pretty good and pretty effective, and like the whole POV thing with the memories and stuff gets pretty dark, and pretty like just like there was moments where I was like, how did I forget what was happening in this movie the first time around? And it does like have this like topical time back then, like I said, with the LAPD, about race relations and the rioting and the brutality of the cops and the cover-ups and things like that. And also kind of like, if you have this information of something really bad that happened, when is it okay to give, like if you're not going to hide it, if you want to protect this information, when is the right time to give it? because with the state of this city, or at the point in this movie, you release this like terrible thing and it's going to set the city on fire right at New Year's Eve. So it's kind of like, when should you have the responsibility to release this kind of news to the public? Do you risk starting an all-out war, or do you try to wait and sit on the information? And who do you give it to? Who do you trust to give it to? It's another thing that's kind of big in this movie, is the paranoia of the 90s. Not trusting cops, not like AIDS was a big thing, so they're talking about how you can't even have sex anymore and without it killing you. It's just really seedy. Everything in this is really seedy, but in the best possible way. One of the things I also liked in this is, and it's silly, but there's these concerts, like little sets that they do. They're like at a club, and there's people playing live music. And what I really liked about it was they really made you feel like you were watching a live show. And I don't know if if I can say this in a way that explains that. Of course, I've seen lots of people sing in movies and stuff. But there was something about the rawness of it that gave it like a realistic, like you felt like you were watching a live concert. Not in a movie, kind of like you're watching real concert footage where nobody was saying cut. Like if they just had these people playing, and it didn't look like lip synced, and the way it sounded, it just felt really raw, like you were really there. Kind of pulled you in, even though the music sucked. I just really appreciated the way that was shot and the sound and stuff for that. As far as characters, like I said, Ralph Fiennes is fantastic as this guy. It's so cool to see him play something like this. He's trying to sell, after he's been kicked out the force, he's trying to sell people this illegal thing. I guess it's illegal to have, these people's memories, and, you want to have two girls, you want to, be an 18-year-old girl taking a shower and all this stuff. And he has lines, he has some morals about it, but not much. As long as it's not snuff or violent crime, like rape or something like that, he pretty much will get you whatever you want. And then, the whole part about him being kind of damaged, and he keeps going back to the girl, which is a very noir thing, that she doesn't want anything to do with him. And she's played by Juliette Lewis, this is back in the 90s, so like, Natural Born Killers and From Dusk Till Dawn and Cape Fear. This was her heyday, and, she's pretty, I don't want to say quite like fearless, but she just kind of goes for it in this movie, which is pretty good. I've never been that huge of a fan of hers, but in this, she really goes for it in a lot of ways. Tom Sizemore finds Nero's like ex-partner, who's like basically, he's out the force too, and he works like security for the guy that is now dating Juliette Lewis's character, Michael Wincott, who, again, he doesn't get tons of screen time in this, but when he does, it's just Michael Wincott. He's got like this black bodyguard in this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just like The Crow. Like, he looks like he's in The Crow, except like instead of being a crime boss, he's like a record producer. And then it just reminds me, he played a record producer in The Doors, and I got to stop. Like, I'll go down this rabbit hole and never come out. Just saying, Michael Wincott in anything just about rocks. I can't really explain his character. He's just Michael Wincott. Damn it. Tom Sizemore. There's scenes with Tom Sizemore and Juliette Lewis where this wasn't too far away from when they did Natural Born Killers. And so their relationship in this movie is kind of weird to watch after the contrast of Natural Born Killers, where he was obsessed with her in Natural Born Killers. And, and it's kind of weird to see them play again kind of close to each other in this movie. Again, Angela Bassett really kicks ass in this movie. I don't really watch a lot of her movies. And again, like I said, I hadn't seen this in 20 years, so I forgot. Like, they give her a lot to do in this, and it's pretty cool. It makes me wish that I had watched this a lot sooner than I did now. Maybe it wouldn't be on my final viewing series if I had watched this movie a long time ago, because then I'd be going, hey, I should have been watching this all the time. But since I waited so long, after seeing it though, I really don't need to see it again. Let's see, what else do we got here? Vincent D'Onofrio and William Fichtner are these two crooked cops. They are just two crooked cops. They don't give them any characterization, but you don't really need to, especially with D'Onofrio. He's got such a great face, such a great, presence. Fichtner, it's one of his first like co-starring roles, or also starring roles, that kind of thing. And he's young as hell in this movie. Let's see, what else do we got? So, and that's about it. I don't want to like ruin the whole movie, except at the end, like the villain kind of gives this like very like villain monologue, like a long monologue. And again, like I said, they could have cut this stuff down, but in some way you'd be missing out. Kind of like when I say cut it down, like there's all these scenes of like people, and then all these extras having like at parties and stuff, and at the clubs, and they could cut all those scenes down, but then we would miss out on seeing everybody dressed in their 90s outfits, but with a techno noir end of the 90s twist to it. So it's kind of like you kind of have to leave it in there just because. So it's fantastic in that way. But yeah, he monologues at the end of this movie forever. The villain does. And there's the typical noir twists and all that stuff, and ends on a little bit more of a, right out of the 90s news story, like corrupt cop beat. Like I know Kathryn Bigelow was trying to make a statement in this movie that's, this is a noir movie with a little secret like message put in the middle of it about corrupt cops. And racism and how black people are treated in this country. And so like all around it is this like really crazy thriller, but it's really the premise is just this simple cop thing, and that's fine because this is steeped in the 90s. It did come out that time, but I'm trying to think of anything else. The killer in this, man, there's a scene, that thing that he does, man, that if you have a weak stomach for certain things, like certain kind of crimes, it's pretty hard to watch. It's pretty hard to wrap your head around, like what a terrible thing to do to another person. So this is a hard R, like pretty hard R at times. And it's got that POV, so there's kind of like, this is like early shaky cam stuff in some scenes. But other than that, like, I'm really glad I watched it again. If you haven't seen this movie, I think you do need to see it once. So it's kind of like I'm saying, like, it's part of my essential things, but not. But for me, I'm glad I saw it again, but I really probably don't see myself seeing it again. And now that I've seen it again, it's probably going to be burned into my memory for at least another 20 years. Like, I'm not going to forget the plot of this anytime soon. And as far as noir movies go from like the 90s, and especially this kind of like techno type movie that they were doing back then, like Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves, shit like that. This is way better. And because it has Kathryn Bigelow and James Cameron behind it, it does have a little bit more, oomph to it. So anyway, that's about it. If you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Again, I will be taking a break from most of my videos that I normally do, like Orphan Black, Man in the Mr. Robot, The Expanse, that I've been doing. Those are going to take a back seat this weekend to Ozark Season 2 and Jack Ryan. They're coming out on Friday, so we'll be making videos for all those. So I won't even be doing movie reviews or anything like that. For anybody that really religiously watches my channel, which I really do appreciate, I want to thank all those people that watch these, any of my videos. So yeah, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications on all these movies. And that's about it. This is Rob at Smirking Gun Reviews saying, strange days. Yeah, it's pretty strange. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.